Okay. Hello and welcome. We will try this again. Hopefully, sound is actually working this time. There's apparently we're having sound problems again. Why wouldn't I? But to start off, hello and welcome to Out of State DMing podcast. I'm your host, lluksblackheart, and we'll be continuing our conversation about skills. The skill we're going to be starting with is gather information. Gather information is a charisma based skill. It is a it is not a train skill. No AC penalties. DCs can vary from 10 to 25 depending on what you're trying to do. It can take anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. This is a D4 plus 1 on hours. You can make the check multiple times, uh, but between the fact that it takes hours to do it and the fact that if you repeat the uh, action more than once, you could very much end up getting the attention that you don't actually really want. That's one of the easiest ways to get people to uh, pay attention to the fact someone's digging into something is simply constantly bring attention to it. So if you're trying to find the Assassin's Guild, multiple attempts to get information about them could get them to visit you in the night because you got their attention. When it comes to how difficult it is for an individual to um, oh, what just happened? Okay, boom. When it comes to getting the information, the more recent the information you're trying to get, the lower the DC. Not necessarily the lower the time, but the lower the DC, because of an event that just recently happens, like the city was attacked by orcs a few days ago. You can get information on that relatively easily because it's recent, so the DC would be quite low. Sorry. But information about what happened during a siege of the city decades ago, getting any sort of rumors or random information could possibly be a lot harder because it happened so long ago. Uh, so when it comes to getting information on that, it can just be harder. The investigator feat does help you with a +2 bonus. So does having 5 or more ranks in knowledge local. So if you have those two things, you can get a overall +4 bonus, which is really, really good. Another thing is half elves. They are better at getting information from people, as they're considered relate well to others. So that does help. The next skill. I have to respond to a message real quick. Um, the next skill is handle animal. Handle animal is probably one of my favorite ones because of how defined they actually go for some of it. It is a charisma skill, as I mess up a message. Sometimes having to respond in the middle of a stream kind of it's But no, I was saying it is a trained skill. The DC and time both uh, depend on what you're actually trying to do, because some of the stuff can take like a week, sometimes it can take longer. It all goes into what you're trying to do. You can try again, except for rearing an animal, because that specific check is specific. Uh, you can affect. I'll use it on creatures with an intelligence of 1 or 2 that aren't animals, but the DC increases by 5. So it's a lot harder to get like a magical beast or a bug to do what you want, simply because it's not an animal. So if it's not going to behave as well as an animal. Uh, Druids and Rangers do get a circumstance bonus to their handle animal checks with their animal companions. So that helps them out, push their animal companions to whatever limits that are, in fact, needed. The animal affinity feat does help with that, with a bonus of +2. Not to mention the fact that if you have 5 or more ranks in handle animal, you get a bonus. Your fault, cause Twitch. Ah. Well, as long as I can be heard now, I'm perfectly okay with it. Uh, but no, I was saying, if you have 5 more ranks in it, your ride checks and your wild empathy checks do get a +2 bonus on it, which that does help rangers and druids out a lot, or any other prestige class that gives you the wild empathy checks. There's wild empathy, like I said in the past when I was going over classes, it's kind of like a cheat when dealing with certain creatures, because you can either get a creature to not try to eat you or to try to help you in some fashion. So it can be really good. It does give the DCs for the tasks you're trying to actually do, to do specific things: handling an animal, pushing it, teaching it a trick, train an animal for general purpose, rear an animal, and it goes into the DC for general purpose things and what the DCs are. And then it goes into details on what counts as handling an animal, pushing the animal, teaching it a new trick, having it attack, having it come, defending location, down, what it entails, fetching, guarding, heal, perform a trick, seek, stay, track, work. Because it goes into all these details on what all those particular things cover, which I love, because in my experience, in my 20 plus years of playing D&D, people who don't pay attention to what's listed on the skill, when it comes to this skill, assume that you can literally do anything and everything because, oh, it says handle animal, so I want this animal to do some random thing here, so I just roll this dice and it automatically does it. When in fact, you have to first verify what the player actually wants the animal to do, then verify where it falls under, so that way you know what DCs they have to make. Does as you can see there, it does go into what falls under the preludes of those particular things, and how that animal should behave under those particular things. It also goes into, like, we're an animal, how long it takes. Does it can take a very, very long time depending on the animal. Does limitations yet on how many creatures you can mirror at the same time. Actions, it goes into there. Like, for tasks with specific time frames noted above, you must spend half that time at a rate of 3 hours per day per animal being handled, working towards completing the task before the attempts. Before you attempt the handle animal check. So it goes into details. Probably, probably do have weird internet connections, even though it hasn't fully said anything at the moment. But earlier I did have a sound problem. So as you can see by the previous statement from the first viewer, dun dun dun, there is some sort of contactivity problem happening, which is slightly interfering with the episode. Hopefully, it gets better. Hopefully. But like I was saying, Handle Animal, there is some leeway DMs can give with Handle Animal, and that varies from DM to DM. What you're actually trying to do, and any of the circumstances that abide by it. Does some DMs will simply just let certain things slide time wise or DC wise, simply because it makes sense for an animal to behave a certain way or do a certain thing like you want it, simply because it's like your animal companion, or you got the animal through some sort of special other thing, like a paladin's mount. Uh, or it's something that's been with the character for so long that it doesn't make sense for it to not do specific things that the player would like it to do, simply because someone decided to be a rules lawyer. Because, like I said, just like people, animals do have personalities. They do have character flaws and character traits, and to a certain degree, and to a certain point, they'll behave certain ways. Like, for instance, in one of the games I run, one of the party members has a draft horse that loves pulling things. It doesn't care about anything else. It just wants to pull things. So when it's not pulling something, it doesn't want to go anywhere. It just kind of wants to sit there and go. Because it wants to pull. It's trained to pull. It's spent its life pulling. It wants the cart hooked up to it. It wants heavy stuff put in the cart so it can pull. Because that's what it loves to do. That's what it likes to do. That's its goal. Pulling. If it's not pulling something, then it gets a little moody. Now it also doesn't want to run her off, so he doesn't necessarily have to overly stress when he unhooks it to set up camp. So he can unhook the cart. It's not just going to go running off because it doesn't want to run off, because it's like, Well, it's like we're going to rest for the moment, so I have to stop pulling it. So I'm just going to go over here and just. The quicker I get to sleep, the quicker I wake up, the quicker I get to pull things. So he doesn't have to constantly roll handle animal checks to stop it from running off, to stop it from not wanting to rest, because it's not that animal's particular habit to do such things. And also, like another game I'm running, a party member does have a eagle companion. Its entire trend for their thing is pretty much keep at high distance, spot things for the party, let the party know. It does scouting stuff. So it's constantly doing scouting. That's its niche. That's what it likes to do. That's what it wants to do. And in general terms, when he calls it to it, or it goes, hey, can you go forward and scout? It just goes forward and scouting. He doesn't have to argue with it, fight with it, or force it to do things, because that's something it's been doing from the get-go. And it's going to cooperate with him because it doesn't have a reason to not cooperate with him. Unless it sees something that's like, oh, that's faster than me, and it's going to try to eat me, so I'm going to stay away from it. That's why I won't go in that area. But he also will become, the player also becomes aware that, hey, my bird's afraid of something because it thinks it's going to get eaten, so that's why it's coming back. It's like just recently, same campaign, the party sorcerer, lost his hawk. So there is certain problems there, but he still loved that hawk. He still had that hawk do anything and what. He didn't have to invest in handle animal because the hawk it did his scouting things. It's just like the eagle. It's a scout. It didn't do combat. He didn't force it to do combat, so he didn't have to make any rolls. Because it didn't do anything it wasn't supposed to do. So in circumstances like that, you don't have to. The DM can waiver the handle animal checks. The DM can lower the DCs to the point where it's like, what's the point of even rolling? You're not going to fail it. The animal's going to do what you want because the animal has been doing it constantly. And that's the difference between like a wild animal that you just met, you don't know how it's going to behave or what it's going to do because you just met the animal, versus the trained animal you have with you. It's going to be more cooperative because A, it's trained, and B, it's been with you for a long time, versus the wild animal that is completely untrained and has no idea who you are or what your true intentions are. So again, DMs can waiver it for certain circumstances. The next skill we're going to be talking about is another one of my favorites, even though it's a underrated skill because the amount of people that either don't put anything into it or don't care to use it, because why use a skill when someone can simply just touch you and heal you with magic? And that's the skill Heal. It is a wisdom skill. You do not have to be trained. No AC penalties. DC depends on what you're actually attempting. The action depends on what exactly you're trying to do. Like first aid, to treat a wound or treat poison is a standard action. So it's like 3 seconds. Okay. Treating a disease or tending wounds, like an actual wounded creature. So it's not like, oh, I have a cut, but there's a bolt sticking out of my gut. Can take 10 minutes, while like long-term care can take 8 hours of light work, because you're providing long-term care to accelerate things. Trying again is varied based on evidence of previous failures, because it is a check that, unless it's obvious, your characters thinks they've passed no matter what you get. So if you roll a 13, but you need a 15 to actually do the injury, you'll think you succeeded unless it's something obvious like removing the bolt from the gut. failing that is obvious that you failed because you failed to remove the bolt. But if you're just simply bandaging the wound to clean it out or to make it not so problematic, that's not so obvious that you failed. Because you could simply fail those and not realize it. Just like in real life, if you don't properly clean out a wound or properly bandage a wound, you're not necessarily going to actually know until sometime later when you go to remove the bandage and or swap out the bandage. We're like, oh, that got infected because I messed up. Because that does happen in real life. The self-sufficient skill does give you a bonus to it. If you have the healer's kit, you get another bonus to it. So in conjunction with one another, you can quite easily end up having really good bonuses. And when it comes down to what those actual actions are, there's, like I said, it's like first aid, long-term care, treat wound for like caltrops, spike growth, or spike stones, treat poison, treat disease, are both varied. And it's mainly goes off of those particular things. And like it said, it does go into what the actual action does, how much time it normally takes. And a big thing for a lot of people to remember that unless the Pacific states otherwise, they do not recover hit points. That's a misconception to why that leads people to either hating the skill or just flat out telling people to not put anything in it, because a lot of people hear the word heal and they think that they're going to pass this check and suddenly a bunch of hit points are going to be rewarded. That is false, and you have to go into what each particular task entails. So, for instance, first aid does not actually restore hit points, it stops losing them. Long-term care doesn't actually give hit points, but what it does is it doubles the rate the person heals for that for that rest. So while like a wounded character needs needs to recover a lot of hit points because they're like down a lot, the person with it, instead of doing a proper rest, can do their use their period resting instead to do long-term care, which does again take 8 hours. It does count as a light activity for the healer, which means that they don't actually suffer any penalties themselves, so they can still get proper rest. But what they are doing is doubling the healing rate, which, as you can see, it's 2 hit points per level for 8 hours of rest in a day, or 4 hit points per level for each full day of complete rest. So it goes into details on what covers what and how fast you can get someone to actually recover. It does go into treating the wounds for like caltrops, spike growths, spike stone. Those things can be tricky, and it goes into how you remove them and fix that injury. Same for treat poisons and treat diseases. Now, if you don't read the treat poison and treat disease and you just look at the name, roll the dice, beat the DC, you can make certain misconceptions. For instance, how it's worded is to treat poison means to tend a single character who has been poisoned and who is going to take more damage from the poison or suffer the same effect. Every time the poison character makes a saving throw against the poison, you make a heal check. The poison character uses your check result or his or hers saving throw, whichever is higher, so that way they don't take the secondary effects. And with the same, if you read treat disease. It says every time that they make the saving throw against disease, you make a heal check, and you use whatever is higher. And that, because, like I said with several skills before, and I'll probably say it for a lot more skills, because certain people don't like to actually read the skill they're trying to use, they just read part of it and assume it works certain ways. Doing the treat disease or treat poison does not stop the damage that's already been done. So the initial poison failure that you suffered, that's still there. It's the secondary poison effect that you get a save against. There is some poisons, they're not necessarily very common, they're very rare, but there is some poisons that go, instead of hitting a minute after the initial saving throw, it can be every single round, or can repeat themselves, but those ones are very rare. But you treat it just the same. So the secondary check is what you're trying to make them pass. And the same thing for diseases, because a disease, once you catch a disease, after the incubation period, every single day, you have to make a check for the disease. And depending on the disease, depends on how many consecutive saves you have to get to fight the disease off. So someone being treated for the disease is being treated every single day. So it's more of a waiting game. So it is also a very good idea to have someone with that skill there. And there's going to be people who go, well, what about neutralize poison or remove disease or a cure disease? You can look at them and go, can you cast that spell? Can anyone in the party cast that spell? If the answer's yes, then let's do it. If the answer's no, well, then this here is the best option. There's also the fact that that casters do have limited on what spells they can cast, what spells they can prep. If they didn't prep those spells for the day, well, then someone with the heal skill is going to become your best friend. Or they don't have enough of those spells prepped, and there's multiple people suffering from the disease. So if you only have one removed disease and there's 3 people suffering from the disease, well, you don't want two of those people to suffer, because you have to get them to survive long enough for the person to for the next day, for the person to re-prep their removed diseases, or prep more of them. So that's a very big thing, to make sure that you have that backup. Because there is some diseases out there that relatively kill a character or a creature you're trying to save relatively quickly. Because some are simple, oh, like, here's a d4 this, or you're paralyzed for this, or you just take a minus here. And then there's other ones that are like, oh, 2d6 con damage. Enjoy death by lack of con. So having someone to keep people alive long enough for the spell, and or just to eventually get the saves going, is great, is awesome. So don't mistreat people who want to actually be good at healing, because with the lack of magic availability, the skill is needed. The next skill is Hide. It is a dex skill. No, you don't have to be trained in it. Yes, there is armor check penalties. So the bulkier the armor you wear, the harder it is for you to get around. The worst combo for armor is a full plate and a tower shield, because that's like a minus 16 to your hide check. The checks are considered opposed, so you use your hide for hide, and everyone that wants to spot you needs to roll a spot check to spot you, and it's whoever gets higher than the other one. Ties technically go to defender, but some DMs may go, oh, that's what they have to get. So if you get like a 19, they have to get a 19 or higher. But my thing is, I like to do ties to the defender, so it's not 19 or higher. It's they have to get higher than an 8, than that number. A character is moving at half speed while hiding. If you decide to move more than half your speed, you get a -5 penalty. So moving fast is not it's not for your best. Because even though you may want to get from point A to point B as fast as you can, penalties can easily stack up. Actions, usually none. This is usually part of a move action. The only real time that it's actually takes an action is if you're trying to hide after making a ranged attack. Because yes, there is a particular option known as sniper. You do one range attack, and you immediately make a hide check afterward. So it's a full round action maneuver. The catch-22 is a -20 to your hide check for performing that. This is really, it's one of those, it's considered really hard to hide after you do that shot, because you just you just broke stealth to do the shot. Now you're trying to reestablish the stealth. There's several special things. For instance, invisibility gives you a +40 hide bonus. Yes, you can still be spotted with invisibility, because it technically doesn't make you truly 100% invisible. It just makes you transparent enough that unless someone is trying, well, not trying, unless someone has a really outrageous spot check, they're probably not going to spot you. And that +40 is only when you're immobile, as in you're standing completely still. If you are moving, it drops to a +20. Now, I would like to remind all you listening that even at level 1, a +20 to your stealth is a big thing. And that +20 still remains relevant even when you get to level 20. Because you have to remember that your max skill ranks is level +3, not counting anything else you have. So being able to look at higher hit die creatures and go, na 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 boo boo, you can't spot me because I have this right here +20, could literally mean a bunch of things cannot see you, simply because that +20 makes all the difference. The stealthy feat gives you a +3. And like, for instance, a 13th level ranger can attempt to make high checks on any natural terrain. While being at 17th level, they get the what I call hips, which is hide in plain sight. Hide in plain sight is possibly the most broken feature any character can get, because normally the skill hide cannot be done while being observed. What that means is, unless a DM is specifically ignoring particular things for your benefit, if you're being observed, you're considered auto-failing your hide check. Yeah, because if people are observing you, even casually, you can't hide. You, with that statement being worded the way it is, means, oh, I got a comment. Yes, I love hips. Everyone loves hips. But with that statement there, if people are observing you, even casually, you just auto fail. You can't do it. That includes party members because they are observing you. They can see you. They know where you're at. In order for them to not observe you, they literally have to declare that they're looking in the opposite direction you're at. So you have to literally make sure that your party is willing to look the other way. Now, I personally do not penalize the people trying to stealth while being observed by party members because you're not technically trying to hide from them, you're trying to hide from everyone else. So I do like to permit people to perform the hide check even with party members technically able to observe them. It's just if there's any other creature that can observe them, the creature doesn't need to make a spot check because it already sees you and is going to sit there and laugh at you as you go to do it. Now, the other thing a lot of people don't pay attention to is the fact that it does state you need cover or some form of concealment in order to attempt a hide check. What that pretty much means in layman's terms is if you're in a hallway, it's a bright, well-lit hallway. You're at one end. There's a guard at the other end. He can clearly see you. There's nothing for you to hide. No shadows, no objects or anything. There's nothing to conceal you or cover you. So therefore, there is, even if he decides to look down another hallway momentarily, if he looks back, he's going to see you because you have no cover. You have no concealment. But if you're in, let's say, tall grass that's up to, let's say, 2, maybe 3 feet, because there are some grasses that get that tall, you can dunk down, get cover from the grass to actually attempt to sneak, because that does give you cover. If you don't really believe me, you can look up natural predators using it to stealth up on their prey. Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, will use cover to get closer to their creatures, and well, to creatures closer to their prey, and they're relatively big animals. Even elephants will use cover to sneak around. And believe me when I say, elephants have been known to creep up on people without them even knowing it. And I'm not talking about they get 20 feet away. No, there's cases where elephants have literally got within trunk touching distance of people before the people realize there's an elephant right there. So cover does help make all the difference. In some things that could cover, let's say, the halfling in the group, won't cover the half orc. Because again, halflings, 3 foot tall is usually they're tall for a halfling. They're a freaking child. While a half orc is this 6+ foot tall behemoth of an individual. So certain things that the halfling can hide behind, he can't because he's just too big. So you got to make sure your character has that concealment, has that cover. The only way to ignore certain restrictions to it is by either A, not having the enemy not being in the viewpoint of the enemy, because I'm not going to lie, if a enemy is looking that direction and you're coming from behind him, he can't see you. Therefore, your hide is successfully passing. Another thing is relying on lighting and obstacles between you and the target. If there is no obstacles between you and the target, invisibility, that's where invisibility comes in. This invisibility helps you be not seen, and that plus 20 to sneaking up on the person is really, really good. Size does pay into whether or not you have a bonus or a penalty. Bigger creatures, bigger penalty. Smaller creatures, bigger bonus. That's why a lot of people assume halflings are going to be the party rogue, because they get a +4 size bonus to hide checks because they're small sized. But if a DM lets someone play, let's say, a Thoraxian, which is a big beetle person, they're large sized. People aren't going to assume they're going to be the stealthy person because they take a -4 penalty to their high checks because they're so freaking big. It does go into stating, like I said earlier, if you're moving at certain speeds, you're taking certain penalties. Like when you're hiding, you're moving up to 1/2 your normal speed. So normal people move at 30 feet, so you're stealthing at 15 feet. When moving at speed greater than 1/2, you lose your when 1/2 but less than your normal speed, you take a -5 penalty. It's practically impossible to hide while attacking, running, or charging. There's a a -20 penalty to that check. So it's pretty hard to actually pull off any of those things. Because if you can run or charge a creature while not being seen, either A, that creature has the worst possible spot ever, or B, you must secretly be a god, because that's a huge penalty. Like, the only way I can openly think to remove that -20 penalty while trying to perform those actions is be invisible. Because that +20 you get for being invisibility directly counteracts the -20 for the action. Uh, This also goes into other random things, like sniping. Right there, that's the action I take. If your already says to be hidden at least 10 feet from your target, you can make one range attack that's immediately, one range attack and immediately hide again. Again with a -20 to reconcile yourself. Creating a diversion to hide. You can use bluff to help you hide. A successful bluff check can give you the momentarily diversion you need to attempt a hide check while people are aware of you. That is kind of important because it's kind of like that whole trope of look over there, and then they look over there, look back at you, and you're gone. It's literally, it's like there's a dragon behind you. I'm disappeared. So it lets you get that comical trope. So it can be quite hilarious. The next skill that we are going to be going over is intimidate. How intimidating. It's a. Oh, really? Oh, you're right. There's 3 of them right there. Yes, I actually commented. If you actually pay attention, there's 3 dragons on my headboard right there. A full-grown blue, white, and black dragon, and I love them. And if you pay attention right over there, I have a figurine for a Tarask. Because yes, I am that. I am that man. I eventually plan on going. Everyone's dying tonight. Put that on the board. Enjoy a Tarask. Ugh. Uh, there's also another dragon. 2 more dragons actually up there. So uh, if you want to get into dragon shenanigans, we'll save that for when we go into talking about monsters. Uh, because dragons can be funny, goofy, and extremely territorial against one another. Uh, Dragon attack! Uh, but intimidate. Charismatic based skill, you don't have to be trained. The way it works is it's opposed by the target's. Bu- 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 You didn't derail it. You added to it. It's opposed by a target's modified level check, which is d20 plus character level or hit dice, which are technically similar to the thing, plus target's wisdom modifier, plus target's modifiers for fear. So certain things can get really, really outrageous really, really quick. Uh, Action is varying, changing another's behavior takes 1 minute. During combat, it's a standard action. This when you're in combat, you're pretty much trying to shake them. Uh, it is technically optional for try again, but it's unlikely to actually succeed again. Specials, you do get a size bonus of +4 for each category you're bigger than the target, or a -4 for every category you're smaller than the target. Characters immune to fear cannot be intimidated. So anyone going, I'm going to intimidate this golem. Golems are immune to fear, so therefore it's just going to stare at you for a moment in pure utter stupidity before it thwacks you. If you have 5 or more ranks in bluff, you do get an additional +2 to your intimidate. Yay. Uh, the main thing to use for using this action is the demoralize opponents. You can weaken their resolve in combat. To do so, you make the check versus theirs. If you win, the target becomes shaken for 1 round. It takes a -2 penalty to attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. The target, an opponent that you threaten in melee combat and that you can see. So you not only have to pretty much be right there next to the person, they have to be able to see you. If they can't see you, then it boom. So blind creatures technically they can't see you. So by that wording it doesn't work. And you can't be like 40 feet away going, you small fry, you cower. Because it clearly states you have to be right there next to them, and you have to do it. Now, some DMs will have certain liberties done with it. Some, instead of having to be a roll off, they'll do 10 plus their hit die plus any modifiers they have for fear effects. So they'll just set a DC for you to try to beat. Therefore, you actually have an actual chance of beating it. Then you actually have the fact that some DMs may let you do it at a ranged. Some DMs won't even actually have them be staring at you. Some DMs may they can hear your beratement, so therefore that will affect them. But in general terms, the enemy has to be aware of your existence. They have to be able to observe you in some actual fashion. Otherwise, you cannot demoralize them. You can use it to alter their opinion somewhat. Because technically, to a certain degree, you can scare them into cooperation. You can scare them into doing what you want. It's like it's kind of like trying to use diplomacy to alter their behavior to be more helpful stuff, to straight up scaring the information out of them you're trying to get, and or just scaring them into doing something, because fear is a great motivator. It is a very potent motivator. uh, One of the things to somewhat remember about a lot of these skills is, if a DM is letting you skirt the rules, if a DM is letting you bend the rules, if a DM isn't enforcing every little thing, like when it comes to stuff like with handle animal or hide or intimidate, you can get away with particular things because the DM is letting you do it. Now, that does not mean that you can take the precedents that one DM has put and take it with all the other campaigns out there, because some DMs will kick you out of your game because I don't do that. That DM does that. Go play with that guy. Uh, so, like I've been saying in the past couple of episodes, rate the skill. If you have any questions, talk to your DM. And just do your best to utilize the skill to the best of your abilities and the best that the game will permit you to use it, while also not pissing off your DM. So thank you for watching. Join us next week as we discuss more skills, because there is a lot more skills for us to go over. And remember to like and subscribe.